guess what? Paraguay is going to destroy the game because that's what they do.
Lock it up. Foul, lock it up.
No, la verdad que estoy muy bien, muy contento de estar acá, así que es un placer.
I understand that, so we're good. My Spanish is okay.
Cuando estás dentro de la cancha, son 11 contra 11. No, they're not secret. Entonces, con la lucha, se puede igualar.
Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite slice of average to goodness. I'm Jimmy Conrad, and this is a special edition of Call It What You Want. The first of 3 episodes breaking down each of the U.S. men's national team's group stage opponents at the 2026 World Cup. I, of course, got my good friends and fellow U.S. men's national team alums Charlie Davies and Tony Meola joining me to take you on a deep, deep dive into Paraguay, the United States' first opponent in Group D. We'll be talking strengths, weaknesses, the heightened emotions of the opening game, and what we learned from that feisty friendly back in November. In short, it's going to be everything that you need to know about the Albiroja. But that's not all. We've also got exclusive interviews lined up with 2 of the heroes from Paraguay's World Cup qualifying campaign, Atlanta United's Miguel Almiron, and one of South America's most respected goalkeepers, Roberto Gatito Fernandez. Charlie, Tony, and I will be walking you through it all. So stick around because you won't want to miss this special edition of the Call It What You Want podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more great soccer content. I might be a little bit nervous about this team, just the opening game in general. Big Tones, I'm coming to you because you've got a couple World Cups under your belt. The first game for me, before we get into Paraguay, just sets the tone for the rest of the tournament, does it not?
Yeah, we hear with every team, right? You got to get off on the right foot, and we saw this in 2002, like playing against Portugal. We saw it in 1994, playing against Switzerland, making sure that you don't come out of there with nothing. We have a little bit of a history now with Paraguay. We've seen them recently. We'll go through their team a little bit. We have an idea of how they play. I don't think it's a team that the U.S. Will be in awe of. It's not like you're playing France opening game or Portugal or England or somebody that is picked to be a favorite in a tournament, but you are playing a team that is a solid team, doesn't give up a lot of goals, but one that I think you'd be okay playing in an opening game of a World Cup. If you're going to talk about, being a semifinalist or a quarterfinalist in the World Cup, a Paraguayan side isn't a team that you should be worried about. Having said that, when the draw came out, there was so much, this is a great draw. Paraguay's saying the same thing right now.
Some former U.S. players, pundits in the media, they see Paraguay with U.S., Australia, happy, muy contento. Do you feel the same, el mismo for you?
Sí, ver ahí a la selección de Paraguay a mí me pone muy feliz porque la verdad que hace tiempo estábamos peleando por este momento, así que nada, creo que va a ser un momento muy importante para mi carrera.
Does Paraguay then walk into this game with no pressure? Like can Gustavo Alfaro, the manager of Paraguay, say, hey, listen, the pressure's all in the United States. Let's go out there and play free. And can we have some actions, especially early on in the game, that will make them feel the United States that is even under more pressure? Can we turn them over? Can we get, obviously an early goal would change the complexion of the game, but do you feel like he'd be using that as something to his, in his arsenal of things to say?
I think South American teams are always under pressure, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because I just think there's a general feeling that South American teams are better than any U.S. team. They're better than a Canadian team or a Mexican team, right? I think they're always under pressure to perform at the World Cup. Whether the pressure is fair to a team that finished 6th in CONMEBOL or not, that's a different conversation. But I think South American teams in general, and there's a little bit of a belief now, right, in this team because how they ended qualifying and how they qualified because the qualifying didn't start off well. So there's like a built-in belief. And I also think that I still go back to the draw. They were looking for Canada or the U.S. in a draw. Like they got the draw that they wanted, right? Paraguay got the same draw that the U.S. got in essence, the draw that you wanted, right? But yeah, I think there's immense pressure on their team, and only because inherently these South American countries, there's an expectation for them all the time.
The arrogance, Tony. Just the arrogance of the South Americans.
Call it what you want. Right? Call it what you want.
All right, this marks Paraguay's return to the World Cup for the first time since 2010. So this generation of players are going to be very excited. We know the country is very proud to find their way back in. They made a run to the quarterfinals back in 2010. That's the best ever in the history of their program under Tata Martino. So this is going to be overall their 9th World Cup appearance. But it's been a while, Chuck, and now they have a manager in Gustavo Alfaro who took over ahead of World Cup qualifying in September of 2024. And Paraguay, 7 wins, 3 draws, 6 losses. One of those 3 losses, 6 draws. One of those 3 losses is a 2-1 defeat to the U.S. that happened in November 15th in 2025, so not too long ago.
Sí, creo que ese partido amistoso fue un partido difícil porque Estados Unidos, la verdad que tiene jugadores muy buenos, son fuertes, físicamente son muy buenos, así que nada, creo que aprendimos eso y nada, vamos a trabajar para poder competir contra ellos.
The fight that happened at the end of this friendly, there was a big fight. Yeah, so do you think that'll carry over at all, or do you just think that the moment of just the World Cup itself?
It's the World Cup, and that was a friendly. And by the way, there was no Christian Pulisic, there was no Weston McKennie, there was no Tyler Adams, there was no Jedi Robinson, there was no Timothy Weah on the pitch that night for the U.S.
So different personality.
It's a drastically different team. When those guys are on the pitch. Now, having said that, it's not like that memory is long and gone and forgotten. Going into it, they're both going to know there is some tension after that friendly. It's not hey, we're buddy. This is, you're representing your country. It's a World Cup. The fight is gonna be there regardless, and that's gonna be underlying, knowing the tone there after the match was pretty hostile. So I love the fact that this is the massive first game of the group stage to figure things out, to kind of set your team up for success. Everything kind of relies on this result, especially if you lose, that could be at the end of it. So, you know, the third place scenario of teams now being able to get out as a third place is huge, knowing that, hey, a draw is okay. We're good with a draw. But I think there's still going to be that tension with certain players, knowing that that's kind of how it went down. But I firmly believe they're only going to be thinking about the World Cup and starting off the tournament on the right foot.
Yo creo que fue una linda, un lindo calentamiento, warming up before the World Cup. Pero lo que yo vi del fútbol de la selección americana es que son muy intensos. Intensos, son fuertes y juegan muy bien. Entonces, lo bueno para nosotros es que ya sabemos lo que vamos a enfrentar en la Copa del Mundo. Okay. Creo que eso es algo positivo para nosotros y también para los Estados Unidos.
In qualifying, they got some big wins against Brazil and Argentina in particular, but in those wins against Brazil and Argentina, they had less than 30% possession. So they're very comfortable playing under pressure and also not having the ball, which I think makes them a tricky opponent for the first game of a World Cup.
It does. They have a lot of quality too. It's not that they're going to overwhelm you with pressure or possession and you're going to be pinned back. There will be times where they keep the ball. They're not just a lump it forward and park the bus. There'll be times where in transition, that's where they're going to be dangerous. They have players who can create, whether it's off a set piece, whether it's, you know, winning a foul, whether it's just through the run of play. Miguel Almiron is not the Miguel Almiron of 5-6 years ago, but he can still hurt you. You know, Davi Gomez, who we saw at Inter Miami, who's now playing at Brighton, it's another good player.
Es muy joven, is too young, y tiene muchos partidos, y es un jugador que tiene mucha fuerza y tiene muchas condiciones, and he can shoot very strong. And then, yo creo que para mí él es un jugador que todavía tiene mucho potencial para poder crecer.
I just think that this is a squad that is going to be really resilient and tough. When you think about really grinding games in a World Cup, this is going to be one of those games where you're going to have to put in a proper shift of intensity and discipline to make sure you get a result.
This is a Paraguayan side that's got a lot of pride. You know, they're sort of always on the outside looking in South American football, right? Because we always talk about Brazil and we talk about Argentina and Uruguay, and you know the Ecuadors and the Paraguays of the world. Chile, even though they won 2 Copa Americas in the recent past, they're always fighting to be in those teams. So there's a lot of pride with this team.
Yo sé que el fútbol paraguayo, la competición de Paraguay, está a un nivel más bajo que Brasil y Argentina, pero cuando estás dentro de la cancha son 11 contra 11. They're not secret. Entonces, con la lucha se puede igualar y pienso que tenemos jugadores capacitados que están jugando fuera de Paraguay, en Europa, Miguel Almiron, la MLS. Entonces, eso hace que podamos igualar a esos países.
Every single qualifier of theirs, except for one 2-0 win over Uruguay, was a 1-goal game or a draw. I mean, these guys know how to grind it out. They know how to get results. And again, that makes me a little bit nervous about playing them first.
By the way, that's a measure of success, because when you're thinking about making a run in a tournament, you have to be defensively disciplined. And when I look at teams with good structure and sound defending, and teams who can capitalize in transition or set pieces, that makes them that much more dangerous come tournament time. So it's going to be a very difficult proposition for the U.S., and one that they have to figure out ways in every scenario. If they get the early goal, that's fantastic. Then they got to come out, and you think about how uncomfortable it would be for Paraguay to come out and be exposed, which is when you got to capitalize again and get that second goal. But if you go down a goal, or it's 0-0 or 1-1 late in the match, you also have to understand third place teams go through.
No, creo que el profe Alfaro cuando llegó cambió totalmente la mentalidad del equipo. Creo que le dio nuevamente esa identidad a la selección de Paraguay, la que teníamos perdido un poco. Así que nada, el profe Alfaro y su cuerpo técnico hicieron un gran trabajo y nuevamente le dio esa identidad a Paraguay, la que estábamos buscando.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And I think a fun fact about their manager, Gustavo Alfaro, is that he was the manager of Ecuador for the last World Cup, and they played the opening game of the tournament against Qatar. They won that one 2-0. So you got a manager who's not new to this experience and should be able to kind of manage the nerves and obviously, if you're playing in CONMEBOL down there in World Cup qualifying and taking on Brazil's and Argentina's and getting results, you're clearly okay with pressure overall. I think this game in particular, in Paraguay specifically, are very good in that second phase. So that's a little bit of coaching speak. Let's say we hit a hopeful cross into the box and it gets cleared out. What happens then? That's the second phase of that particular action on the field. If we're good at keeping them pinned in and can win that second phase ball, that's where they're still scrambling a little bit. However, under Gustavo Alfaro, they're very good at being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's clear. When you give up 10 goals only in 18 games in World Cup qualifying in South America, you got to be very good. And you're only having 30% of the ball, most of those games. You have to be very good at being uncomfortable. And that's what concerns me a little bit about Paraguay, because when you start to think about Miguel Almiron, you got Julio Enciso, who's playing at Strasbourg right now. Not necessarily putting the numbers up, but can be a very dangerous player. They've got some speed and they're very dynamic out on the wings. And we saw it in the friendly. They can hit you with one pass over the top, and all of a sudden you're like, what just happened? And we just gave up a goal. And so that second phase becomes important. And Tones, I'll come to you on this, because I know you have a lot of coaching experience. That managing of those situations is, I think, going to determine who wins this game. Because if Paraguay can win that second phase and then spring one of either Enciso or Almiron, or we can't get around the guys in the middle of the field who are kind of driving things. You got Gustavo Gomez or Cubas.
Any team that sits back and opens up space in behind you and waits for a ball, a la the goal that they scored against the U.S., it's all about transition defending. How do you break up plays early enough in the play so they can't get guys into the attack, right? How do you, the ball that gets sprung out to Miguel Almiron, how do you, one, maybe block the pass? How do you, two, now defend Miguel Almiron and keep him on the sideline, don't allow him to cross the ball? Because in those moments, the field gets really big, right? There's a lot of space, and that's what they're trying to create, is space in behind. So transition defending becomes really important. In this particular game, we're going to have the ball. We're going to be okay with the ball. We're going to have enough possession, enough to create. It's how do you now, that light switch. You go from the light switch being in the attack mode to now being in the defending mode as quickly as possible. But the one thing you don't want to do is disrupt the flow of the game, because that's what Paraguay wants to do. So it's not like you want to commit a bunch of fouls and then let them put the ball down and get guys forward and put balls in your end. Like, you got to be really, really smart in how you defend. But Jimmy, you laid out the game perfectly. It's a transition game. If any of these games is a transition game, like, I don't think the Australia game is going to be like a transition game. Like, we're going to worry about their transition. We're going to worry about restarts. We're going to worry about other things. This one, I think transition is the key to the game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think we're going to see like a 3-2 type of game, a 4-3. This is a
1-0 written all over.
I was about to say the same thing.
This is 1-0 written all over it. And Charlie, you're hoping you're the one who scores first, right? Because if not, this team becomes really, really difficult to play against. And that's been the DNA of Alfaro's teams, right? It's defend well, be stingy, don't give away a lot, and then go take your chances. But when you look at the names on the roster, Gomez, Cubas, who we see in MLS, Miguel Almiron, okay, a different version of Almiron, but still a guy that's technical, right, with the ball, and Ciso on the right side. Like, they have guys that are actually can play with the ball, right? So it's not a team that's just going to completely destroy the game unless they're, if they're a goal up and 10 minutes to go, guess what? Paraguay's going to destroy the game because that's what they do.
Lock it up, foul, lock it up. What adjustments going into this World Cup would you make with the roster and to break teams down if you were in that situation, being 1-0 down to Paraguay with 10 minutes to go? What players would you feel you need to have included in this roster for that type of situation?
Guys who can break down a low block, guys, we talked about Gio Reyna or Zendejas, guys who can make a pass that unlock a stingy defense. Clearly, we depending on how your forward is playing, are they getting opportunities? We talked about this for the last couple of weeks with whether it's Balogun or if there's balls being swung in the box, do you bring Pepe in? Like those tactical adjustments. But you need guys that are calm on the ball, especially if you're in your scenario. I would think the last thing Paraguay is going to do is just completely open up the game. Right? Just go. We're not going to see an end-to-end game. We're going to see a game that's played in 40 yards, right? So in those 40, 45 yards, who are the guys that we have that can break you open with one pass? I can just tell you my 3 experiences and how they went. Poor start in Italy, right? In 1990, we lose 5-1 to Czechoslovakia. You know how the tournament goes. You get a result in the first game in 94. Against Switzerland, and now all of a sudden you're feeling a lot better about yourself. And then my 2002, that team, you go and beat Portugal, one of the favorites in the tournament, 3-2 in the opening match, and it changes the way the face of the way the tournament looks to you. You have a belief in yourself that you can get something done. There will be added pressure on the U.S. being at home. They don't know it now, but they'll feel it when the time comes and when it gets closer to the World Cup. And I think this team will respond. We mentioned the fight earlier. We kind of joked about, I don't know that you have to get into a fight with Paraguay, but I think you got to be up for the fight.
Right.
Because Paraguay is going to come with intensity, pride, like from the national anthem on. That Paraguay knows that they're in the World Cup and what they're representing. So the U.S. has to match that part for sure.
All right, so there you have it. Our first look at Paraguay and what the U.S. is up against to kick off their World Cup campaign. But before we get out of here, we have to throw up our score predictions. I've got the U.S. doing the business 2-1. Charlie says the U.S. 1-0. And Tony, great minds think alike, think the U.S. is going to win 2-1 as well. So as you can see, it's going to be pretty tight across the board. We're expecting a battle, but clearly feeling like we can get the job done. Please get the job done. Now we want to hear from you, though. What's your prediction for U.S. versus Paraguay? Drop your scoreline in the comments and let us know which player or players you think will make the biggest difference in this game. Also, if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit like and subscribe and turn on your notifications about our channel so you can stick with us. We've got you covered all the way to and through the World Cup. All right, we'll see you next time. Later.